Leah is responsible for about 4 marriages, if I'm correct.
With all due respect, it went up to 6 since we last spoke.
6, damn. It's absolutely insane, and you should literally shot in the face.
The questions, and then a few questions in, she's like, oh, like what dress size does she wear?
Sarah and Max, an unlikely pair in this wild podcast, they're the perfect flair. Sarah charms, so feminine and free, a Cali girl spirit under the podcast tree. Max a strong force with a punch in every word. Together they navigate the dating absurd. Don't forget to hit subscribe, join the crew for more laughs and tales just for you. Now back to the show.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Good for Shidduchim. I'm your host, Sarah Levine. I have my co-host with me, Max Landisman, as always. Today, we do have a wonderful guest with us. Before we get into this episode, we just want to remind everybody to like us, subscribe to us, leave a 5-star review. And also, if you have any questions, please email us, which is goodforshidduchim@gmail.com. Follow us on Instagram. Our follow is at goodforshidduchim. And also, we have a merch store now. And Max will leave the information in the description, as he always does.
Yeah.
Okay. Without further ado, we have a wonderful guest with us. She is a queen when it comes to
This is a big deal. This is a big time
single
interview
events.
right here, Sarah.
Queen.
And setting people up. Not to mention, she has always with her in her purse whatever you need when you're at a wedding. So without further ado, Leah Respler, everyone.
Thank you.
Leah,
I'm
welcome
so
to the show.
happy to be here. Thank you. This is so much fun.
Yeah, because
We're excited for you to be here.
Leah is responsible for about 4 marriages, if I'm correct, and also runs the greatest singles event of the year every year for the most part.
With all due respect, it went up to 6 since we last spoke.
6, damn.
Yes.
No way.
Yes.
Damn.
But I am a very big believer. You just do your hishtadlus, you do, and that Hashem makes the shidduchim. I don't take credit for it, but I was able to be involved in 6 marriages.
That's unbelievable, and that's
Thank
why
God,
you're
thank
so
God. Thank God.
That is insane. So does
Yeah.
that mean you get to like another level of heaven? Like you already
Okay,
did your 3, so like do you
I
get
could
to
I
the
guess
other
it means
level?
I could take a friend with me. I could take a +1 to heaven,
Oh.
right?
First of all, Leah was
Oh.
already heading there to begin with. I think she was doing okay before that.
Okay,
And also,
yes.
I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but that whole thing with if you set 3 people up, you're going to heaven is as great of a mitzvah as it is. Apparently, there's no source for it, or anyone has found a source for it.
There is no source for it.
Okay,
I think
but
it's just a
a
bubba
nice
myself.
thought.
It's a nice thought. I think it's good
It's
to
a
help
nice
people.
thought.
But I
No,
don't think there's
100%.
any quick trick to get to heaven, you know?
No, just do everything Leah
No.
does, and you'll be fine.
But it's just like a nice bonus in the back of your head. Like
sure.
it could happen. Who knows?
Yeah. I hope so.
So Leah, I just wanted to ask you just to like tell us about yourself a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, I'm Leah. I am a therapist by trade, but I do a lot of other things with my time as well. And one of the things that I am incredibly passionate about is setting people up. It really started organically. I dated a lot of people, single for a long time, had a lot of friends, was very outgoing and social. And I would go out with someone, and if he wasn't for me and he was a good quality guy, immediately afterwards I would message him, is it okay if I set you up with a friend? And I don't know, maybe 10 years ago when I was doing this, that wasn't such a norm. People were a little bit, sometimes thought it was a little bizarre that I was messaging them after a date, like, can I set them up? And then I set up a bunch of friends that way. People started kind of doing the same thing. And one summer, maybe like 7 or 8 years ago, one of my friends was like, can you just make like a super low-key July 4th barbecue? I'm like, okay.
Yes.
I invited, I think 15. I think
barbecue.
The initial barbecue, Max, I don't think you were there for like phase 1. But
I don't think so,
I
no.
had like 15 guys and 15 of my friends there, and it was so laid back. I had one table, I had like one package of hot dogs, like one thing of burgers.
Wow.
It was so low key. And
Wow.
I actually, people just had a wonderful time. And two people met at the barbecue, got engaged a few months later. And then I was like, I think
Damn, for
it's
real?
meant to be that I should keep doing things. And every year I added a new dimension or a new detail, and it got bigger. And now it's become kind of a yearly tradition. So yeah, that's how
Hey,
it
you know,
all
I don't know if
happened.
you remember, I used to go to them, and I wasn't even living here. I was in Miami, and I still
You
would
were in
actually
Florida.
come.
Yes, I
I would
remember.
actually come to hang out because I
Oh,
really
that's
enjoy
commitment.
coming.
I actually
It
think
is
the first
commitment.
year I thought you lived in Teaneck, and I was like, oh, and you're like, oh, I came in from Florida for this, and I'm like, oh, I was honored.
Totally. Yeah, no, for sure. I've been going every year. I look forward to it. I actually mark it on my calendar.
Oh my God, I'm so
The
honored.
joke is, if I get married, should I still go just to hang out?
Yes,
But
you
Yeah, I mean,
should.
Shlomi and I went.
You guys were there
that's
last
true.
summer, and you were such a wonderful addition. And that is specifically what I want to try to create at the events. I don't want it to be your classic singles event where everyone's walking around and you slap a name tag on them, and the shadchanim are there forcing this one to talk to this one and this one's, and treating everyone like children. Like, we're all adults, and if someone's married and they want to come and have a good time and meet new people and maybe set them up, come join. Like, if you're there to have a good time and meet people and mingle and be friendly and outgoing, anyone's invited.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, actually, like, I'm the king of one and dones, unfortunately. But it happens to be that one of the best girls I've ever gone out with was actually from your event. She was actually originally, well, I was with a friend, and the friend was actually eyeing her. And then so I'm like, okay, fine. So I'm gonna, as a guy code, you kind of lay off because he's into her. But it turns
Mm-hmm.
out that she actually inquired about me, which I was really taken aback
Amazing.
by. And we actually did go out 7 times, but that was from your event. So
I don't even think
um,
I knew about this, but that's like, I think that's one of the wonderful things about the events that I run. So many things happen from it, and I don't even necessarily know if someone on a date. One couple got engaged and they never even told me about it because
what? So
it
we're up
all
to 7, or
no. I counted them in the 6,
oh,
but
fine, all
things
right.
just, I feel like, happen so organically, because what I love about the event is if someone likes someone, go over and talk to them and get their number and connect on your own. Like, I like giving everyone space, and I like that. I
Right.
like that I didn't know that, and I'm glad you went out with someone on 7 dates. Someone found a job from the barbecue. Two
Really? Wow.
girls became roommates in the city from it. I'm like, to me, those are just as big a win as a should have, just for people to
Yeah.
make
Those
new
are big
friends,
wins.
find
Yeah.
For
jobs,
sure.
go have a positive dating experience, whether it leads to marriage or not. I want to count those too if I can, in maybe a separate category.
100%.
Right.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, going back to the guys that you dated that you texted after,
Yeah.
what was their reaction to you suggesting like your friends after you went out with them? Because I know for Max specifically, he's not like the biggest fan, and his friend also told me that like he's not the biggest fan. Like, if he goes out with a girl, like, he doesn't want to go out with the friend. He's obviously going out with the girl. So
Can I,
Mm.
can I clarify?
I
Can I
wanted to
clarify that?
know.
Can I clarify that for a second?
Go right ahead.
So it's not as clear cut and dry as that. It was more of when the guy is very, very into the girl themselves. And when the girl breaks up with the guy, it is, the guy's kind of, taken aback a little bit. And when the girl wants to set you up with their friend, that's what I'm talking about. But if it just mutually, like, we're both very nice people, we, you like each other, but not in that way, then setting up with your friend, I wouldn't have a problem with. That's a caveat. I'm just saying there's a caveat to it.
I hear the difference. I think it's a
Okay.
very different situation to reach out to someone that you maybe dated seriously and it didn't end well. Like, I would be a little wary. I don't think I would text the guy right away being like, okay, we just had a messy breakup. I want to set you up with my friend. But if it was a few dates and it was either mutual or there wasn't such depth, let's say, to the relationship, but I knew they were a good guy and we just weren't aligned or we were mismatched, I would be very tactful in the way that I always message them. So I would be very like, is it okay with you? Do you feel comfortable if I, would think of you for my friends? I would never just make an assumption and send them my friend's information, because
Sure.
some people are cool with it and some people think it's weird. So I always would give them like an opt-in, let them opt in. But yeah, I think, I think it was, I don't want to take credit. I think people are always setting up their friends and being in touch with people. But I think 10 years ago, it was much less of a norm than it is today, if that makes sense. Like, I think now, people are like, single people are much more involved in shidduchim than they were 10 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, I can agree with that. I'm trying to think, because like I started dating at 24 and got married at 32, which is not like 10 years, but it is a little bit of a long period. So I do remember like the early days were a lot different than my later dating days, but it could be just because I was like a little older. But
yeah, I think that it's twofold. I think maybe just time changed it, but I also think when you're a little older and you're more mature and you're less of a follower of the rules, quote unquote, which I know, the rules are, a lot of the rules are unhelpful, but I think as you're older and more mature, you realize like, okay, which of these rules are helpful and which of these rules are actually unhelpful and not helping people meet each other. So I think it's a combination of those two things. I think there's a little bit less stigma in terms of single people, and now they can make events and set up their friends. And there's a lot of single people. I'm not the only one that are running singles events and, setting up their friends and doing things like this. I think we've become a little bit more open, but I also think similar to what you're saying, that as you get older, you become more mature and you're able to see things more clearly, and what these rules are. Like, you realize which ones are actually unhelpful. And then you can break the unhelpful rules.
So, I mean, I agree with you that there are people that do run events and do try to set people up, but I do think that some people are better at that than others. You happen to be the king or queen of doing that. So I did want to ask you a question. Again, like I used to fly to this event year after year.
Yeah.
So, number one, what makes a good event? And number two, how do you actually, because I've gone to your events, there's like 100 people there, and it's actually like split pretty evenly. How do you actually attract, especially the guys? Because from the guy side, as a guy, I don't understand this mindset, but they think it's like a nebuch to go to like a singles event, and I totally disagree. I go to have a good time anyways, but you still attract them to come. So how do you do that?
Oh, that's such a good question. I think that
we only ask good questions on the show.
Yeah, I think I was pretty lucky that the first few years of the barbecue, it just had a good vibe to it. People enjoyed themselves. I think the first few years, people kind of maybe forced themselves to come and not know. And then the next year, someone like you, Max, or other guys that came would be like, oh, I'm going to bring my friends next year. This was a lot of fun. But I think that's the goal of what my event is. Like, I don't necessarily label and brand it as a shidduch event. Like, even when I send out the flyer, it's a July 4th or a summer barbecue. That's what it says. It doesn't say singles event. It doesn't say young professional singles. It doesn't say speed dating. It doesn't say an age bracket on it. It doesn't say why you machmir, right? All of those things make your event less enjoyable for the people that are there, because you feel like you're being pigeonholed into a box, or you feel like you're being maybe treated with a little, I don't know what the best way to say it is, but maybe treated like a child. So I went to some singles events and I would walk in, and let's say the people that were running it would slap a name tag on me and say, start here. You're going to, we curated a group of people that we want you to meet, and you're going to meet these people. And I'm thinking, okay, but why can't I choose who I want to meet? Right. So I always call it, from my perspective, the anti-singles, like singles event, not anti-singles, but it's the opposite of that mentality of singles event, where I just want it to be open. You could talk to whoever you want. You could ignore whoever you want. You can come for 2 minutes and leave if you don't like it. Like, it's not like you're stuck there, and it's not like you have to sit and speed date 17 people you've already dated. And if you don't, right. And if you don't want to wear a name tag, you don't have to wear a name tag. So I really try to brand it as a barbecue with a lot of people there. Some might be for you, some might not be for you, but even if someone's a little older than you or more religious, less religious, not your type, it's still worth speaking to them because maybe you have a friend for them. I really try to view it more as a networking event than a singles event.
I was gonna say I also feel like when I heard about it when my friends were going to like the OG event that you were like started,
Yeah.
they were just excited to go because it was like a peer of theirs. Like it wasn't like somebody who they felt intimidated by or like they felt like they needed to like put on a show for, or they didn't feel like any pressure from anyone really at the beginning. They're like, "Oh, Leah Respler, she's doing this barbecue, like it's low pressure. It's a peer, you know, like she like has no agenda other than people having a good time and meeting people." So
Yeah.
I think like when I first heard about it, I was like, "Oh, it must be like really different because like she's a peer who's doing this." And that's actually pretty cool. Not a lot of people do that. Like for the
Yeah.
peers.
I never really thought about it from that perspective, but that's true. Like my only agenda was for it to be enjoyable for people. Like I wasn't even
Mhm.
trying to make shidduchim. I just was the first year I forgot to say this. I wasn't even trying to make shidduchim. I had never made a shidduch before. I had tried a million times. I was like, we don't control it. I'm like, I just want to instill hope in people. That's all I wanted to do. I just wanted it to be fun. And I wanted people to walk away and say, oh, we could meet like-minded singles and have a good time. And that exists. And it doesn't need to be terrible and doesn't need to burn me out. And it doesn't need to suck the energy out of me to do something like this. That was really my mindset the first year. I said, I'm not making a shit up. I just want people to feel hope.
Right. Because when you think about it for a second, like you were doing this, I believe when you started, you might have been in your mid-20s maybe or whatever.
Yeah, like early to mid-20s. Yeah.
Right. And you were single yourself. So
yeah.
Most people just sit at home and just complain like, oh my gosh, there's nobody out there for me. You're actually taking action and doing something about it. So you deserve a round of applause.
Yeah. I don't know if I deserve a round of applause, but I really think that like you guys are so active and that's wonderful. And I really think that it's every single person's responsibility to help their friends, whether they're single, whether they're married, to help their friends in any way that they can. And for everyone that's different because we all have different skills and we all are connected to different people. And listen, I'm lucky that my parents have a huge backyard and therefore I can host something like this. If they didn't have a huge backyard, I wouldn't be able to host something like this, right? So everyone has like their skills and what they have. And I really think it's everyone's responsibility to try to help in whatever way that they can, because the more people that think for their friends and, the more positive experiences, the more hope, the more shidduchim there will be.
Right. The thing that you mentioned was that thinking for other people, I do feel like sometimes that's just not what people are thinking, that there's more of an agenda for themselves, that they feel that because they made X amount of matches that they know everything and they know how to do like the best event and they know who to set up who with who and they know what's what, and I feel like there's this attitude of, I don't know, just like in that regard, if that makes that
I know
sense.
exactly what you're talking about.
And there's right. I was gonna say there's no like everybody should like help each other or like do this for another person. It's kind of like turned into, in my opinion, something for somebody's self. Either like they make money off of it or they get an ego from it. So,
or it's a power trip. I think there's a lot of people that do it for the wrong reasons. And listen, you could still make shidduchim for the wrong reasons. And I think that's still like ends good result, even if your intentions were not right, if you're helping people. But I do think that's why some of the events and some of the some of the events I had gone to and some of the interactions I had with people that tried to set me up really rubbed me the wrong way, because for so many people, there's this feeling of, I know better than her. She's single because of this reason. My event, she doesn't want a speed date or she doesn't want to wear a name tag, but I'm sorry. This is what's right for my event. And it comes from I think it comes from I think everything from my background comes from like insecurity. People that are insecure, like are always looking for ways to like feel better about themselves, and they'll find any way to feel better about themselves, right? So if it's feeling like because I'm married, I'm better than you, and therefore I know what's wrong and why you're single, and I know how to run events and you don't, like there's something clearly wrong with that person. But I think that's why so many of these events and so many times people get suggested to get an idea suggested to them, it rubs them the wrong way because it comes from such a negative place. And I always, that's why I just try to make it as low key and enjoyable as possible. And I always say before the event, I always say some Tehillim. I try to not say Lashon Hara for a week. I'm like, because it's not me. And I have no control. Once the event starts, I could control that if there's enough food, and I could, maybe try to control who comes in if it's a pleasant experience, but I have no way of controlling if people actually have a good time and if people actually meet. That's completely out of my control. And after every single event that I run, Max, you probably will remember this, I text every single person that comes to my event something along the lines of, thank you so much for coming to the barbecue. I hope you had a nice time. If there was anyone you met that I could help, facilitate an intro to, please let me know. And if you have any feedback to make this event better, I would love to hear that too. And I think that the last sentence is maybe the most important, because just because I think something feels good to me doesn't mean that that's what people are looking for. And I think that people that are open to getting some feedback, whether it's positive or negative, right, that could help you do things better for people. And I think there's so many people, just like you said, that really are in it for themselves. They're not in it to help. They're in it to feel good about themselves, or to feel powerful, or to boost their ego, right? And that is terrible.
Yeah.
100%. I'm just thinking of one specific case of when I went to an event and I actually felt like just gross afterwards. I just felt like I was completely taken advantage of. Number one, like once I got there, I realized what's going on. There was nothing there. Like, we're talking like crackers and whatever. And this was like this was expensive to get in. The place was free, like, and just everyone there was just nobody wanted to be there. Like, that's just the aura of what.
Ugh,
what
a terrible feeling.
And when when I found out, like, he doesn't do those events often because he can't get people to come. That's the reason, because the event sucks.
Yeah.
And people get really burned. There's a reason why 100 people come every year to your event. By the way, I do remember the Lashon Hara thing, because one year, I think it was 2 years ago, Sarah, you gotta hear this. It was legitimately like 100% positive it was going to rain that day. 100%.
Oh, that was the event that I was at.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
100% going to rain.
It was like a 90% chance of rain.
It was really humid. I remember that.
I can't take credit because I actually learned it from my aunt, and she said whenever she hosts, and I don't know it. You're not supposed to, like, necessarily make deals with God, so I'm not saying this is right or wrong.
But it's good for shidduchim. It's okay.
But I really feel like if your heart is in the right place and you want the right thing, I always say, like, a few weeks before, I'm not going to speak Lashon Hara. And especially that time, it's so difficult to not speak Lashon Hara, because sometimes someone will, not be so nice when they're trying to RSVP or something like that. And I zip my lips and I bite my tongue and I say, and the stress of me not saying anything to anyone, I hope it's a successful event. I hope the weather is nice. I hope people meet and have a good time. So you're right. There was a 90% chance last year of rain, and it indeed did not rain.
I think it like rains in the morning or something.
It poured in the morning.
Right.
And then I think it was called for like 3 or 4 p.m. And I had a band coming, and they called me like, you need to get us a tent. So I quickly figured out a tent for them to be under so their equipment wouldn't get ruined. And then it didn't rain. Yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So Leah, I wanted to ask you, how do you budget for these events? Because I know one of the feedback or like Max had mentioned this. I also, like, when I did singles events, they're really expensive.
Yeah.
And like Max mentioned, like he paid like money for a single event and there was just crackers, or like the entertainment wasn't so good, or it was just like you don't get what you paid for, basically. So I know it's really hard to budget for these events, but I was just wondering, like, what you take into account when you're charging.
Yeah. So I think that's a really good question. I do everything myself, which is great on the one hand, and it keeps the cost down. but it's not so sustainable because I even feel like for this year, it's so much work. I do all the shopping and all the schlepping and all the everything. And it's a labor of love, but it is physically exhausting and just so time consuming. But I do that because I don't want to, let's say, hire a party planner or something, because then I'm going to have to charge people well over $100. And that's a lot of money for people to spend, to go to a singles event. So when I am very organized and I make a list of all the different foods that I want. And then I try to find them on sale. But I buy crazy quantities because I also have been to events like you explained where there's no food after a few minutes. So I have so much, I always am careful to have like so many rounds of food, and I, buy all the things, and I do entertainment, and then I charge a certain amount. And thankfully, and anything extra like that's above the costs of what it cost me, I donate to tzedakah. I've been giving it to Yad Eliezer Adopt a Wedding in Israel the last few years. So I don't think people know this, but we've, as a community of people that has come to this event, we have sponsored multiple weddings in Israel. So I really do my best to keep the costs down. And thankfully, every year I've covered my costs, and then I've had extra to donate to tzedakah. And I don't really I do my best to budget and to be strategic, but like every year I'm nervous I'm not going to cover. And every year I'm like, okay, if I have to use some of my own money to cover the rest of it, I will. But thankfully I haven't, had to do that yet. But if I had to, I would do it. I wouldn't start charging, hundreds of dollars for people to go to a singles event. I don't think that is fair.
It's one thing to spend X to get crackers. It's another thing to spend X to get unlimited meats.
Yeah, and booze. By the way, the booze is sometimes the most expensive stuff.
Yeah,
and the meat also is kosher.
Yeah,
so it's phenomenal.
Yeah,
it's a very big difference. It's just like when you pay and get nothing. That's the issue that I find. But
right,
I don't think anyone has an issue when you get like an extra.
What?
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, yeah. I will say one year I didn't have enough desserts, and I still feel bad about it. I think I had like watermelon and ices and not enough cookies. And I apologize to anyone that didn't get a cookie.
Boy.
Yeah, I know. Terrible. It's terrible.
But it was good for shidduchim because it gave them more time. Instead of eating, they're going to talk to more people.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
So go. Oh, sorry, Max. Go ahead.
I do say, like, as you mentioned, like other people do events, so on and so forth. But there aren't really, not saying like you go to like, find a match per se, but to just have a good time in general. We actually had an episode with my brother on. We were talking about that. But like you are involved in 6 matches. There's got to be something. Like what do you attest that to? Because like there are other people that do it. I mean, personally, if you're asking me, I just think you're just better at it in general. But if you were to pick one thing, what do you think is different? Because at the end of the day, you actually are successful at doing this versus others.
I really can't take credit because I think there's probably plenty of people out there that are making wonderful events, and it just hasn't been the right people there yet to meet. But the one thing I really try to do is I really like in all of my communication with people that attend, I give them space, and I'm not pushy, and I don't put any pressure on anyone. Like if someone wants to go out with someone, great. Here's each other's numbers. You guys can be in touch. If you need more help from me, great. I'm happy to help, but I am not pushy at all. And I think that sometimes people make events or try to set up a shidduch, and they really want it to work because the person setting it up really likes the idea or really wants their friend to go on a date, but they approach it in too aggressive of a manner where it ends up making the singles feel uncomfortable. And even if they agree to go on a date, it's like they're kind of forcing the matter just to get this person off their back. So I really try to be very respectful. If someone says no, I don't push. And I don't even need to know why, unless it could give me clarity to make a more thoughtful idea for like make a more thoughtful suggestion. But I don't need to know why. And I really just try to respect people, respect what they say to me, and give them space and let them build a relationship as adults. I don't need to text them after every date. How did it go? Can I help in any way? Like, I know if someone needs my help, they'll reach out to me. And I appreciated like some space from people that tried to set me up or events that I went to. So I think I try to give people like that respect and that space as well. And I know from personal, like you said, like going to a lot of singles events where, you know, you walk in and someone's whispering in your ear, you have to talk to this person and you have to go here, and they, you know, throw two people in a corner to talk to each other. I don't think it works. I don't think that's the way to, you know, to connect people. I think it has to be with respect, respect. I think that's the number one.
Sarah, what do you think? I think Leah should be speaking all over, basically saying, all right, here's why you all suck. Here's what you should do better. I'm just kidding. But
no,
I think it's a valid point. It's a valid point.
I think it's more of like low pressure environment just seems to be kind of the standard for Leah, and I am definitely one of those believers as well, is like never to push anything, because like then there's an agenda behind it. And like if you're just there for two people that and you're supportive of them and you just thought, you know, hey, maybe a good idea, and there's a low pressure environment, I feel like it's not more successful, but like it has better vibes, I would say.
Oh, for sure. I walk into
pressured.
I walk into a store and someone's trying to pressure me to buy something. I walk out. I walk away like that was a terrible experience, right? And so I don't want anyone to come to a singles event feeling that feeling of like the pushy sales person. Like, if you want to meet someone, if you want to go out with someone, great. But I will not force the matter, and I will not disrespect someone that says no and try to force them to go out with someone. But back to the point of, to me speaking, I don't think that I am so special or so unique. I think I understand what it's like from the singles perspective, and therefore I know what I liked and what I didn't like, and therefore every interaction that I have or every event that I try to make, I always try to sit down and say, well, what did I like and what did I not like? And I really try to come from that perspective. I think there's a lot of people out there that are making events that were fortunate enough to find, you know, their person pretty quickly, and maybe they've set up a lot of people, but they never really went through shidduchim themselves, and therefore they're just lacking understanding and sensitivity. And I think it's hard to teach that.
I agree.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I never thought of that. Like somebody who wants to make a singles event but never went through it. Or someone who never went through like a hardship in dating and is trying to tell people about it. I don't know. I've really never thought about that. But I did want to ask you, going back to Max's question, how going back to the singles events, I'm just curious.
Yes.
How do you get a proportional amount of men to women? Because it's very impressive.
I am very on top of this because I don't want it to become a 70%, 30%, you know, like I really want it to be as close to 50% as possible. So the way it works is when people RSVP, I put them on a list and I only open a certain number of slots for men and for women at a time. And so let's say I open, 5 slots for each. And then let's say I have 5 women that RSVP, and then I haven't had any men RSVP in those slots. So let's say another woman will say, oh, I want to RSVP. And I'll say, okay, you're next online. When I get 5 guys to RSVP, you're the next woman that I'm going to allow to attend. So I really try to keep it balanced. I don't care if I'm 1 or 2 people off because it's a very big event, but I never allow within the RSVPs to get more than, 5 more than the other.
Oh, okay.
So I only open up slots. So people might listen to this and they might know that they've texted me in the past to say, oh, I would love to come. And I'll say, well, right now we're filled on the female slots. And sometimes it even happens on the opposite. Sometimes I have so many guys that have RSVP, and I'll say, but hang on, as soon as another slot opens, I'll be in touch with you. And then as soon as I get more RSVPs, I kind of give them that first slot. But I really, as I'm getting the RSVPs in, I like stagger it.
Right. Because when I was there, I noticed that there was like a good ratio, and sometimes singles events, or even like when I've been on Shabbatones, there's literally like 1 guy to maybe 15 girls.
Yeah.
And so I was like,
where are those
impressed.
events? I need to sign up immediately.
Yeah, that's a good event for you.
I mean, listen, if it's a good quality guy, I guess it's good for him. But I mean, I was like, I don't know. Sometimes you feel like you're lied to about, like, wait, isn't this supposed to be a
Yeah.
singles event? Like 15 girls to one guy. Like, come on.
Yeah.
So I was like so impressed. I was like, okay, these are like solid guys, and you have like a good ratio. It was very impressive.
Yeah. Yeah, I know because I also have been to events where, it was really uneven. And that was something that I'm very intentional about when the RSVPs start to come in, because I don't want anyone to walk in and feel like they've wasted their time. But just anecdotally, funny enough, the ladies always come fashionably late to the barbecue. Always, always, always. And the men come on time. So if you actually show up to the barbecue, if any ladies want to come to my barbecue, listen to this. If you show up the time that is posted, you will be alone with at least 10 to 15 guys, because every single year I'm like, oh, did I forget to invite like ladies this year? Like there's just, and I'm just like, oh, right. They're going to come fashionably late.
Oh my
So
gosh.
it's a good secret if anyone wants to get some alone time with the guys. Come early.
Well, I purposely want to come early because I want to go eat first, and then I can schmooze with people.
Okay, so I spoiled your little secret. I'm sorry.
No, you can spoil it. It's fine. People who are latecomers anyways are going to always be late. But
Yes.
that's actually like the first thing I do. I go straight for the buffet,
That's
and I
smart.
go eat, and then I get down my food, and then I go mingle with people. That's my shtick.
Oh, that's
my
your
approach.
tactic?
There's
Yeah.
also
I like
so
that.
many people you can meet at like the drink station is like a great pickup place because everyone
Yeah.
there is going to want to drink.
Yeah.
So it's a solid spot.
My sister was so nice last year. She bought a blender. I don't know if you were there, and she was making like frozen mixed drinks.
I had one, yeah.
And they were actually delicious. That was fun. And she said the people were really hanging out at her little mixed drink bar.
Oh,
exactly, because
yeah.
it takes a minute to make them. So you
So you got to talk as she's making you a pina colada.
Yeah,
right.
I actually mentioned I think in one of the early episodes that we had about a girl that made a move on me, and I thought it was absolutely brilliant, and actually like played out what she did, how she did it, and it was actually waiting for those pina coladas at your barbecue.
Wait, what was the move?
So
I must hear.
The move was, we were talking about how girls feel like they can't approach men, or things like that, where guys will be very turned off, and I feel as a guy that's the completely BS, because this girl, basically, we were both standing waiting for our drink, and as I got and as we were just kind of hanging out there, she was able to kind of bring up conversation, and it just naturally just became an actual conversation, and she kind of swooped in. She didn't do anything crazy. It's not rocket science, but the fact that we both were just kind of standing there, she had an opportunity to kind of form a conversation with what I, with someone that she wanted to talk to. I thought that was brilliant. I don't see many girls actually pulling that move because they feel it's like guys are turned off by that, when I think it's crazy, because they'll just ask their girlfriends what do they think, but they never ask a guy, hey, do you think that's hot or not? I think it's great.
Yeah, kudos to her. I love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And I'm glad it happens at the pina colada line. I mean, good things happen at the pina colada line.
I agree.
I do have to thank my family, because they all really help and chip in. And so I took credit by saying I do it myself, but actually my parents and my siblings all really helped me make the event, which is really, really nice of them.
Yeah. I was going to say, though, I don't remember this pina colada. And I'm
because
kind of
I
like
stuck you at the front.
You were in the front, Sarah.
Because you have such a good. So that's one more thing I try to do. I try to have someone that has a really good personality like you, that's outgoing and friendly and just can talk to anyone. Try to have them at like the check-in table. Yeah. Just because I want everyone to have like a little bit of a pep talk before they come in, like just have fun, have a good time, go over and talk to people, relax, enjoy. And that's why I stationed you there, because you were the right personality. But I do apologize that we didn't hand deliver you a pina colada.
No, it's okay.
Please accept my apology.
Come on, I could have asked Shlomi to get me one in like 2 seconds.
Shlomi was too busy talking to people.
That's true. He was trying to make stuff happen over there.
Leah, you got to hear this story. This actually did happen. There was a singles event in TABC when Shlomi actually ran it.
Okay.
And so Sarah was there as a single person. And so Shlomi at the time, whatever, he was married before. So Sarah is sitting at a table and says like, oh, who's that cutie? And it was Shlomi. And so someone mentioned like, by the way, he's off limits. he's married, whatever. So she's like, fine. She didn't end up showing up to the launch because she was having such a lousy time. And so in my head, I'm like, by the way, like no one said like, by the way, he's got like a twin brother or something, whatever.
Right. Well, I mean,
I did
it
go to
wasn't
the
meant
lunch.
to be.
I went to the lunch, but
That's
I told
hilarious.
my friends, I was there with like two of my friends who you actually know. I'm not going to mention the names just because I don't know if they're comfortable, but
Yeah.
I was with them and I told them, I was like, okay, guys, like the guy I was interested in, he's like off limits. So, I mean, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
Right.
Peace out.
So I was like peaced out in my mind a little bit,
but at the time you didn't know that they were twins, that there was twins. There was two of them.
Nobody mentioned Max. I have a feeling like
Max.
I probably saw Max. I probably like interacted with Max.
Exactly. Nothing to write home about.
No, but to be fair, I've seen Max and Shlomi a million times. I don't think I could tell them apart. I'm sorry. I still can't.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Sarah,
I will say, like Shlomi was wearing black and white, and Max, or maybe I don't know. Now I can't remember.
When Shlomi was around, I purposely would wear very colorful clothing. I wouldn't wear a white shirt, black pants, because I wanted people to tell that we're different people.
You wanted to differentiate.
I feel like you were, I feel like you
strategic
wore
branding.
something completely different. So I was interested in the guy who was wearing white and black.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody was like, oh, but he has a twin brother. I was like,
and Sarah's like, no, I was looking for quality, guys.
It's like
she was looking for the white shirt. I'm sorry, you didn't have the white shirt.
Only white and black, man. Only white and black.
Yeah.
Even though he doesn't wear white and black.
He wore white just for you. Just for you, he wore the white. Now he doesn't need to anymore.
Yeah. On Shabbos he does. On Shabbos he does. But
yeah.
So
that's
funny.
A
That's
little
really
funny
funny.
tidbit.
That's great.
Yep. Is there anything else that you'd like to share about the singles world, or things that people maybe should be aware of that you always kind of wanted to say? You probably talk about with your friends or family, but maybe not on a public forum. Is there anything kind of like that you like to get out?
I feel like I got out a lot of stuff already. Like it's like pretty open about how terrible most singles events are and how maybe self-centered a lot of people that try to make shidduchim are. I guess my message is that every single human being, and especially those that are single, should be treated with respect. And it's really disrespectful when people think they know better than the person themselves. I think that's really disrespectful. And there are way too many, shadchanim or people that try to make shidduchim out there that think they know best. And just know, like, it's not your nisayon, and it's really difficult to be single, and it's not easy. And a lot of single people are incredibly lonely and have gone through some really hard times, and treat everyone with respect and kindness. And I think that should be a given, but it's not, sadly.
I agree.
Yeah. I definitely agree. I mean, you think that it should be a given, but you get like shocked, like surprised how people react to your age or why you were on a break or your family background, and you're just like, wait, like that's not how I feel about it. Like, why are you? Like, it's very confusing.
I always say, if like the shadchan or the person thought about how they would talk to someone who was maybe struggling with infertility and how sensitive they would be to that person, right? They wouldn't start giving them advice. It's because you don't eat healthy enough, or it's because you need to lose weight. You would never say that to someone, right? So don't say use the same sensitivity and kindness when speaking to single people. You don't know what they're going through. You don't know. The only reason that they haven't met their match yet is because it wasn't the right time yet, and it wasn't meant to be yet, and not because they're doing anything wrong. And if single people are doing something wrong, that's something for them to figure out for themselves, or maybe go see a therapist. But that's not the matchmaker's role to tell them, what they should be doing. So I think sensitivity and kindness goes a long way.
This is a perfect segment to mention what happened to me just last week. I mean, you actually won't believe this. And a lot of our, I wouldn't say viewers, but listeners, I guess, probably feel like this only happens on the girl side, but a family friend who considers himself a shadchan, and Sarah already knows what I'm going to say. This legitimately happened.
Just from
And
your facial expressions, I'm excited.
oh, this is great. And so
I
he
like,
thinks he,
oh my
what?
God.
All right.
It was
So
crazy.
it's crazy. He legitimately sends me a text. I'm actually going to pull it up so I don't misquote anything. He goes, here, let me try to pull it up. Just 1 second. Shoot. Let's see if I can find it. It's literally unbelievable. He's like, well, at the time, I was dating somebody. He asked me to kind of keep him updated, so I did. I let him know, by the way, I no longer am going out with that person. So he's like, okay, how tall are you and how much do you weigh?
Oh my God. That is crazy.
It was so absurd. So absurd. By the way, for the record, not saying like he's met me in person on a number of occasions and knows me. Even if he does, you still shouldn't ask that. But it's like the most ridiculous thing. But it gets worse.
How much do you weigh?
Yeah.
It gets worse.
Well, okay, keep going. I'm sorry.
And it gets
He's
worse.
unwell. Oh my
For the
God.
record, like I don't even care sharing it, but like the fact that because it's shidduchim, I'm not sharing this. It's like ridiculous. So I asked, I could have gone so many different ways. I could have just said screw you from then on, but I asked him, how much do I weigh? Like with a question mark. And then he's like, his response was really disgusting. He's like, height and weight. Don't worry, just tell me. So
Don't worry, just
Don't
tell
worry,
me.
just tell me.
Just tell me. As
He's
if he's like your physician. What is
Exactly.
this?
The only
As if
people
he
that can ask
owes-
that
as
is a
if
physician.
Max owes him.
That's
Like he
wild.
like Max owes him this
That is
information.
wild.
And so I really didn't appreciate it. And then he wrote, don't assume anything, exclamation point. It's only for me and nobody else. She did not ask. So that's actually even weirder than anything. So you have this grown man who basically just said, no, the height and weight thing, that's just for me. That's just for me. Even number one, I do think he's lying, whatever, but like he just made it so weird. The fact that the point is that people think this is okay when it comes to shidduchim. People think this is okay to ask. I've spoken about this a number of times about asking girls' waist size is absolutely insane, and you should be literally shot in the face.
That is
for asking stuff like that.
That is absolutely crazy. I actually was once is that the end of the conversation? The text?
Yeah, go ahead.
I once was a reference for a friend of mine, and a potential date's mother called me. And so she asked some basic questions, and then a few questions in, she's like, oh, like what dress size does she wear?
Wow.
And I was like a little taken aback. So I'm like, oh, like I'm just wondering like why you think that's a relevant question, or like she's like, I think it's just important. Like, my son really needs to be with a thin girl. And I'm like, okay, excuse me, can you tell me your dress size?
Nice. Thank you.
I'm like
Finally, someone
cringing
actually
over
spoke
here.
back.
And
That
she was
literally
like, what do you mean?
cringing.
I'm like, because your dress size is just as important as her dress size.
Yes.
And
Amen.
I just said, with all due respect, you might be able to get that information from someone else. I think that's and this was a long time ago. I said,
Amen.
I am not answering that question, and it's rude and disrespectful, and have a nice day.
Yeah.
100%. See, I've been saying this. People should talk back more.
Yeah, because also like she was so taken aback because I'm usually very nice. So I was friendly and I was answering her questions and we were making jokes, right? And then she asked that question. She thinks, well, chum. No, we're not. That's
right.
an inappropriate question.
So I'm going to be really inappropriate. And I would have been like, what's your son's D size?
Yeah.
Oh my God, Max.
Yeah. I don't think I was able to bring it to that level, but that definitely would have been it would have been even more of a shocking reply.
That would have.
Her reaction will probably be the same as like, that's so inappropriate. I'm like, so is asking for my friend's waist size. It's also inappropriate. He's freaking But why?
Crazy.
Why do people think this is okay? People think it's okay.
I mean, I think people are just like unwell and have all of their priorities, out of check. And she never once said, oh, is she a nice person? Is she a kind person? Tell me about her personality. No, like, what is her dress size? And I'm like, if that's the most important thing, then like that she's not for you and go find someone else.
Yeah.
Right. I was going to say,
yourself, but yeah, that's also not, but you're a lot nicer than I am.
I was going to say there's a lot of boundaries that are crossed
Yeah.
with people like this, either shadchans or people who are references. There's just boundaries that people don't set up, and then there is boundaries that are crossed. And I do feel like the people that are in shidduchim that don't understand that they have the ability to create these boundaries, when they get a call like that, they're like, okay, well, like the reference is calling, it's like the mom of the guy, or like, okay, it's the shadchan of the guy, and like I owe her this information.
Right. They don't want to mess up the potential shidduch. And if I'm rude to this woman on the phone, she's not going to want to, they're not going to want to continue with this shidduch, which I understand why people would be maybe a little just give an answer or dance around it. But
exactly.
But that's so disrespectful. And I felt like I had to stand up for my friend in that moment and not worry about the shidduch. And if this will be her future mother-in-law, let's say, like, this is and this is the first interaction, like she's, the first thing that she's asking. I'm like, this is not someone that I think she would want to marry into this family. Like, I don't think this is good for my friend. And therefore, like, I tried to be like nice-ish, but like, how nice can you be when someone says something like that? You can't just take it.
Agree.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, my friend is long married, so I didn't like mess with her shidduchim for life. Thank God.
Right.
You did your friend a favor, I think.
I think so too.
Dodged a bullet with that one.
Yes.
But it's like rampant. It's like a literal, this goes on all the time.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's going to take people to actually talk back to them for this pandemic to end, because as of right now, most people ask the question and like people actually give an answer. And I think that's what's continuing the thing until you get slapped in the face.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. Leah, any other words of wisdom you'd like to share?
I think that's about it.
A lot of shidduchim.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of information given. I think
it really comes down to just that last message we're talking about, is that there's, for some reason, people think that they can treat single people like not like human beings sometimes, like a question like that to you, Max, or, forcing someone to go on a date against their will. And I think that that's just the message, that like everyone deserves to be treated with respect, and no one knows better than the person themselves.
Yeah. And Leah, did the event happen yet? Are you having an event this summer?
Oh, so yes, it had to be postponed for 2 huge trees falling in my parents' backyard. So I had to actually cancel it like pretty last minute, but I'm hoping that all of the work and construction is done by Labor Day weekend. So that is my goal for this summer, but I haven't officially like confirmed it. Therefore, anyone that, you will get the information when I know for sure.
Okay, but hopefully something. Labor Day weekend is just as nice as July 4th, I'm sure. If anything, maybe a little better weather. No?
Is it?
I don't know. I'm trying to put positive vibes out there.
I gotta stop speaking Lashon Hara now for nice weather. It's going to be like a full month.
I'll go to the Kotel and daven.
Please.
Sure.
I appreciate it.
Put in a little
Kapitzel,
thing for Leah Respler. Yeah.
And
barbecue, please let it be amazing and good weather.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Okay, Leah, thank you so much for being on the podcast. And we really appreciate your time and what you have to say. And you should only be successful with more matches and
thank you.
Good and just good events all around.
Thank you so much. And this was so much fun, and it was a treat to be on the podcast. So thank you guys as well.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you so much, guys, for listening. And I hope you enjoyed our podcast. And until next time, we will speak to you. Bye.
And remember, everything will always be about shidduchim. Catch you in the next episode.